They built 28 condos on my land while I was in the hospital fighting for my life. They bulldozed the oak tree where my wife's ashes were buried and poured concrete right over her memory. The HOA president thought she could steal my legacy, but she didn't know one thing. I own a demolition company, and I'm about to show her what real destruction looks like. Before I start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? That 5-acre parcel wasn't just dirt. It was my father's gift. The land we cleared together back in 1983 with nothing but a chainsaw, an old Ford tractor, and a promise. We left one oak tree standing, right in the center. Dad said, every home needs a landmark, something you can see from a distance and know you're almost there. When he passed 10 years later, that oak became more than a tree. It was his voice, his shadow, his memory. And when my wife Sarah died, I buried her ashes beneath its roots. That spot became sacred. I swore I'd build her a cabin there one day, a quiet place for our daughter Emily and the grandkids to feel her near. That promise kept me alive through long winters and empty nights. That land was all I had left that still felt pure, until it was stolen. 3 weeks in the hospital, that's all it took. While I lay strapped to machines, the HOA next door, Heritage Point, decided my land was underutilized. Barbara Kelso, their president, a woman with a diamond smile and a heart made of polished stone, filed paperwork claiming my property as part of their expansion. She used an old 1997 survey, one my father never finalized after a fence line dispute, a clerical loophole, and the county, buried in red tape, rubber stamped it. By the time I got out, my fence was gone, the oak was gone, and 28 condos stood where Sarah rested. I still remember pulling off the main road that morning, expecting sunlight through oak leaves. Instead, I saw a wasteland of concrete and steel, wooden skeletons clawing at the sky, fresh mud, and the stench of diesel. My heart hammered, but not from illness. A sign read, Private Property of Heritage Point, HOA, Phase 4, Development, no trespassing. I got out of the truck anyway. 2 guards stepped forward, one young, one old, both wearing the same smug smile. You can't be here, sir, the older one said. This is my land, I told him. Not according to our paperwork, he replied, tapping the pepper spray on his belt. Something inside me froze, the kind of rage that doesn't shout, it chills you quiet. The next morning I called the county clerk's office, gave them my parcel number, waited while she typed. Then she said the words that hollowed me out. Your deed's still active and clean, Mr. Carver. But the HOA filed a permit using a 1997 boundary survey. Looks like a paperwork overlap. A paperwork overlap. That's what they called it when someone bulldozed your wife's grave. That afternoon, Barbara herself called. Mike, she said sweetly, I'm so sorry for the misunderstanding. Why don't you come to our community meeting tonight? We'll clear it up. I should have hung up, but I needed to look her in the eye. The clubhouse was packed. Beige walls, beige clothes, beige souls. Barbara stood up front, hair perfect, smile plastic. She started with a speech about community values and property value before gesturing to me like I was a guest star. And now Mr. Carver would like to share a few words. I held up my deed. This land is mine. Been in my family 50 years. I've got the paperwork. Barbara smiled like a snake. That's lovely, Mike, but your deed references an outdated plat map. That parcel has sat empty for years. We've improved it, for the good of the community. A man in front shouted, About time someone cleaned that up. Barbara nodded. See, we acted in good faith. We're creating homes, opportunity, value. I clenched my jaw. You built over my wife's ashes. The room went dead silent. Barbara blinked once, slow. Then that fake smile came back. Why don't we discuss a buyout? The board is prepared to be generous. A buyout? I said. You want to bribe me for land you already stole? Gasps, murmurs. Barbara's mask cracked for a heartbeat. Then she whispered, It's too late now, Mike. The concrete's poured. What's done is done. I walked out humiliated, but my mind was already turning gears. The next morning, I sat in my garage, the same one where I built my demolition company, Ironclad Demo and Recovery. The smell of oil and sawdust filled the air. On the wall, rows of blueprints, permits, crates of precision charges. They built fast, but I tear things down faster. My first call wasn't to a lawyer. Lawyers are loud. I needed quiet competence. I called an old friend, Lena Brooks, a civil surveyor. I laid out the deed, the 1997 map, and Barbara's forged paperwork. She scanned it for 5 minutes and said, This is sloppy. They're hanging everything on a draft survey. That's not even a legal claim. 2 days later, she called me back. Got something, she said. Your dad filed a utility easement in 1978. A main sewer line runs directly under the eastern third of your land. They built 12 condos on top of a municipal sewer main. I nearly laughed. That's a no-build zone. Federal code violation, which meant everything sitting there was illegal and dangerous. Now I had leverage. The next morning, I loaded 12 concrete barriers onto my flatbed. At dawn, my foreman Randy and I drove to the access road the HOA used for their trucks. On my second parcel, castle, the one they already eyed for Phase 5. We dropped the barriers across the entrance and hung a new sign. Private road, no trespassing, right of access per deed, 477B. At 7:45 a.m., my phone rang. Their site supervisor, fuming. "You can't block our trucks. We have deliveries." "You're on my access road," I said. "That's trespassing." Silence, then shouting, then panic. They rerouted trucks, lost time, lost money. It sent a message. I knew my rights better than they knew their lies, but I wasn't done. That Friday, I walked into the county permit office. Not the public floor, the basement where the real files live. Frank, the old clerk down there, owed me a favor. Years ago, I saved their archives from a flood, reinforced their walls for free. I handed him a form, a demolition permit. Under reason, I wrote, "Unsafe structures built over municipal easement without consent." Frank read it, raised one eyebrow, then stamped it. "Permit 734, he said quietly. "Active as of now. Good for 90 days. He slipped it into my company's folder, deep in the cabinet, hidden. The trap was set. The countdown had begun. For the next few weeks, I stayed quiet. Let Barbara think she'd won. Let her investors get comfortable. Let the concrete dry on their stolen dreams. I didn't drive by the site, didn't call the county, didn't even tell my daughter. To them, I looked beaten. But every day they built, they dug their own grave deeper. Barbara sent glossy newsletters. "Building a better tomorrow," they said in gold letters. She even thanked me for my cooperation. I pinned one above my workbench as a reminder. The louder a liar talks, the closer they are to falling. Then one morning, I parked on a hill half a mile away before sunrise. Through binoculars, I watched them dump rebar and concrete into a shallow pit, right where Sarah's oak once stood, using her resting place as a trash hole. Something inside me broke clean in half. That's when I decided, this wasn't about getting my land back anymore. It was about ending them. The next day, I met Lena again. She showed me something worse. Emails between the HOA and a local inspector. A bribe. They'd paid him to ignore the easement violation. Fraud. Criminal. I didn't call the cops. Not yet. I needed one final strike. A move that would end everything at once. A week later, Barbara called again. "Mike," she said, fake sympathy dripping from her voice. "We'd still like to offer you that buyout. For your trouble." "For my trouble," I said. "You mean for my land?" "You can't win this," she snapped. "We have investors, permits, lawyers." I cut her off. "And I have patience." Then I hung up. 3 nights later, my security camera pinged. Motion detected. A drone, hovering above my backyard, right over my grandkid's swing set. 10 minutes it stayed there, watching. I called the sheriff. Next afternoon, 2 deputies pulled up. Not about the drone, but because Barbara had filed a report against me for threats and harassment. I stepped out on the porch. The older deputy sighed. "Mr. Carver, she says you've been harassing her workers." I handed him my tablet. "You might want to see this." He watched the drone footage. His face turned cold. "That's registered to her HOA?" "Yup," I said. "Tell her to keep her toys out of my sky." As they left, my granddaughter Chloe peeked out from behind the curtain. "Grandpa, are you in trouble?" I picked her up. "No, sweetheart. Grandpa's just fixing something that's broken." And I meant it. 3 weeks later came the grand opening of Heritage Point Phase 4, the day Barbara had been bragging about for months. News crews, investors, cameras flashing. She stood on stage in a red suit, microphone in hand, preaching about unity and progress. I was parked just out of sight. My demolition crews, 3 of them, sat waiting in their dozers, engines cold, radios on. I checked my watch. 10:01 a.m. Barbara took the stage. "Welcome to the future of Heritage Point," she said. Then the ground began to tremble. At first, people thought it was a truck. Then the rumble grew louder. Dust rose from the distance as 3 yellow machines crawled into view. Ironclad Demo and Recovery, logo shining in the sun. Barbara froze. The crowd turned. Gasps, screams. I stepped out of my truck and walked straight toward the stage. The cameras swung toward me. I climbed the steps, took the mic from her hand. "My name is Mike Carver," I said, my voice echoing through the speakers. "I'm the owner of this land, and every one of you is trespassing." Barbara's face went pale. "You can't do this," she yelled. I held up a folded paper. "Permit number 734, filed legally, approved by the county. Demolition of unsafe structures built over a protected municipal easement." The crowd erupted. Reporters zoomed in. "Step aside, Barbara," I said quietly. Behind us, the first condo groaned and collapsed inward. A perfect implosion. Dust billowing high. The crowd screamed and scattered. The second and third followed, crashing into the dirt that once betrayed them. The sound echoed like thunder. When the dust settled, 12 condos lay in ruins. That evening, the news broke. Local HOA under investigation for fraud and illegal construction. The county launched an inquiry. The investors bailed. The bribed inspector resigned. Barbara's face was everywhere, crying on camera, calling it a misunderstanding. But then the evidence surfaced. The fake surveys, the forged permits, the drone surveillance. She was indicted on fraud and bribery charges. Heritage Point, HOA, dissolved. The condos sat empty, rotting frames on cursed ground. Weeks later, the land was mine again. I waited a month before going back. The site was quiet, just wind through broken beams. I walked to where Sarah's oak once stood. For the first time in years, it was peaceful. I knelt down, pressed my hand to the soil, and whispered, "It's done." Emily stood behind me with her kids. We'd brought a young oak sapling, small but strong. Together, we dug a hole and planted it where her mother once rested. When we finished, Emily smiled through tears. "Mom would have loved this. She's here," I said. "Always was." A few weeks later, the county passed new homeowner protection laws, stricter boundaries, heavier penalties for HOAs that tried land grabs. They called it the Carver Rule. The irony wasn't lost on me. My father once said, "The earth remembers who it belongs to." He was right. Now when I stand at the edge of that field, I see the new oak swaying in the breeze, my grandkids laughing beneath it. That land is more than soil. It's memory, it's legacy, it's justice. They built it fast. I tore it down faster. And in the end, the land and the truth belong to the right hands again. So tell me, what would you have done in my place? Let me know in the comments below.